all 8 of his stalkers left, he can make a push on blue right now. Both players warping an extra 5 stalkers, and now we got 13 red stalkers against 5 blue stalkers, and that's GG right there. And of course, there's counters. Now, in StarCraft, we have soft counters and we have hard counters. So a soft counter would be something like the Marines fighting the Zealots in the open. It's not the best situation for the Marines, but they're still going to do a lot of damage. If you have enough Marines, you can actually overcome the Zealots. But in a hard counter situation, this would be something like Marines against Colossus. And now, you pretty much wish you had any other unit to fight those Colossus. Marauders, Vikings, Thors, Banshees, Siege Shanks, pretty much any other unit. The Marines are not good. But there are ways to overcome hard counters using terrain or micro or other things I've already talked about. So let's look at a hard counter situation. This is 2 Banshees against 10 Marines, and this is an equal cost army, and we can see that the Banshees stand no chance. There's 7 Marines left over. Those Banshees should have not fought that battle. But in this situation, same thing. The Banshees are just going to micro. Now you can see they're taking a shot and they're moving away. And the key thing to note here is that the Banshees have more range than the Marines, and they also have very high burst damage. So if they move in between their shots, they can be very effective. And in this situation, we're able to kill all 10 Marines without losing a single Banshee.
So now that we've mastered all the basics, let's take a look at some pro games to see what we can learn from these pro games. The first example we're going to show you is an example of a proxy rush. A proxy rush is generally useful against a player that's greater skilled than you, and the reason is because it's really easy to execute a proxy rush because all you need to do is memorize one build order in order to do this almost perfectly. So we notice the red Protoss player is at the top. He's actually sending his first probe in the middle of nowhere to build his first building. The reason for this is because he doesn't want the enemy knowing which sort of proxy rush is coming. Protoss actually has 2 different proxy options. First is the proxy gateway zealot rush, and the second is a cannon rush. So the green player is actually playing normal. He's built a pylon right next to his nexus. He's using chrono boosts, and he hasn't gone out for the scout yet. So we see the forge going up, meaning this player will go for a cannon proxy rush. And generally speaking, especially on this map, it's really common for the for the player going for the cannon rush to block off the enemy entrance using pylons, and using cannons from below, he can actually hit probes and buildings that are on the high ground. So we notice the green player is actually sending his first scout to the red Protoss base. And when he gets there, he's going to notice that there's no buildings there except probes or nexus. So there's 2 possibilities. First is the red player's AFK. The second is a proxy rush is coming. But because this is a tournament match, he's probably not AFK. So the red probe is finally at the green Protoss' base. And there goes the 2 pylons. This actually blocks off the whole entrance so that no ground unit can leave this base unless they kill either of those pylons. And the green player actually reacts by making a second gateway, meaning he probably expects a zealot rush coming, but little does he know, it's actually the cannon rush. So soon we'll see the cannons going up, and the only way for these cannons to shoot above is if there's a spotter. Right now there's that probe, so if the green player manages to kill that probe before he makes any buildings, he can actually stop his push. However, knowing this, the red player actually puts down 2 pylons above to spot for those cannons. And at this point, there's not much the green player can do, and the game is pretty much over.
So I can't tell you, well, I don't want to admit, how about that, how many times this has happened to me online, and the amount of nerd rage it generates whenever this happens to me. David, what should the green player have done in this circumstance to block this rush?
So the one and most important rule when blocking proxy rushes is to use your probes. Even if you use your probes to block this rush, he's not behind because the nature of proxy rush means he will be behind if the rush fails. Meaning, in this specific case, he can actually use these probes to kill the pylons to get to those cannons, and using zealots and probes, he can take out 2 cannons, and that's all he needs to do. And once you block that rush, you have a huge advantage. So the second video we're going to show is an example of an all-in rush, and just like the proxy rush, this is really easy to execute compared to other different strategies because you just follow one specific build order and you attack at a very